on how to increase conversion, everyday tactics that actually work. My name is Andrew McCarran. I'm the Managing Director of SBC, Sports Betting Community. And with me today, I've got two very, very interesting people to talk about conversion. I will throw it over to them to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into it. So, Toma, can you go first, please?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. And I'm Tomer. I'm the CEO and founder of Solitics. We launched back in 2016 our online platform, which enables organizations to easily connect to their entire data sources within the organization and to implement the best-in-class marketing automation and BI capabilities. So again, very happy to be here.
And Emiliano.
Sure. My name is Emiliano Sanchez. I'm very happy to be here and joining you, Andrew and Tomer, as well. Thank you for the invitation. I've been working for the last 2 years with Mancala Gaming. We're a game provider which have a strong focus on how we can help also on retention and conversion of players. Before that, I had about 10 or 11 years of experience dealing with VAP retention departments in operations from different markets. So yeah, I think that's a nice introduction. So once again, thank you for having me and welcome everyone to the webinar.
No, thank you, Emiliano. As we're all here today, I mean, betting and gaming operators focus significant effort and budget in getting increasing traffic from different sources to come to their site, but there's still a lot to do once that traffic arrives at the site. So nowadays, once a player reaches the site, the operator has little power or impact driving the actual conversion, which is obviously key. I mean, it's at the moment you get into an operator site, it's a relatively static position, certainly from the operator perspective. How can they take a more aggressive approach, sort of making sure they engage with those potential players and with what they really interest them? I mean, what's your view on that, Toma?
So first of all, I like the aggressive approach, but I personally believe that static is not the opposite of aggressive, and it needs to be like a dance with the customer. So you need to respond to the customer actions and to move from static strategy into a rolling strategy. For example, if the player enters the website, you have your bonus, your welcome bonus, okay, that you can offer him, or first deposit bonus. But if he does not respond to your first offer, you need to change your offering. For example, if he enters the roulette page but does not respond, maybe you want to offer him the same offer but with a different background image. And if he still does not respond to this offer, maybe you want to offer him a different bonus, meaning, for example, more aggressive bonus in order to convert. So I think that it's not about being more aggressive. It's more from moving from being static into rolling strategies. Now, one of the most common mistakes that organizations have is that they believe that they don't have enough information about their customers. But from the moment the player enters the website, you start collecting a lot of information about the customer behavior. So that gives you the ability to really personalize his experience, the user experience. For example, you know which pages he's on, what games he's mostly interested about. So that's really, if you use this information, it really helps you moving from static strategy into a dynamic rolling strategy, which at the end of the day convert much better than the static one.
So do you think the operators actually realize how much information they've got from a player even as they arrive? I mean, you said where they've come from, what information, even what time of day that they're online, and obviously have some leisure time. Do you think the operators are not aware that they have this key information?
Yes, some of them do. You know, mostly the early adopters know that they do, and some and are just unable to do that because they have some technological barriers within the organization to actually use or utilize this data in real time. Because, you know, if you don't convert the customer in the first 10 minutes, he's most probably not going to be your customer, because it's going to be very hard to convert this customer. So they just don't have the technological capabilities to convert this customer live. and some are just unaware of the amount of information that they are able to collect over the customers. But most of the data can be collected quite easily. I mean, like there are a lot of tools out there that can provide the ability to just track the pages that the customer is on, to track which games he entered and so on. So it differentiates between different brands.
Sure. I mean, Emiliano, I mean, what's your experience of how operators can make sure this conversion process happens a little bit easier once the potential player has arrived on that site?
Well, the main issue that operators face, right, is that sometimes they take too long to reach out to these players, right? By the time the player went in and do the clicks and check the product, by the time their support or their different departments get the information of the player, it's already hours, if not days, before they start reaching out to try to do this conversion, right? And there is a small window of the interest, right? We live in a world that we're being blasted with different type of promotions all the time, and I think there's a lot of businesses and operators that they rely too much on what offers they put out there instead of trying to be a little bit more proactive in trying to connect live, not only where the player is and the promotion that you're going to send them. And as I've been very advocate about engagement between the site and the players to create trust and loyalty, there is this disconnection of live feeds of information that allows our operator to react faster in order to increase the conversion. So this connection, I think, is something that is sometimes disregarded. It could be because it's not a business oriented, or because they assume it's going to be very expensive to implement these systems, when in reality, that long term ROI is what they're missing out, right?
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you suggest people are taking hours and days, but Thomas suggested it's a 10-minute window. Is that that something that you would agree with?
Oh, of course. The faster operator reacts.
Okay.
Please, Thomas, sorry.
Yeah. Can you say again? I'm sorry, I missed the last part of it.
So I was just saying, you suggested it was a 10-minute window, and Miliano was saying that operators are waiting for hours before getting there. So I was asking Miliano if 10 minutes feels like the size of the window, and whether operators actually recognize that.
Yeah, of course. Like I was saying, like the span. I mean, you can contact a player, you can engage with them after, but the interest is not going to be on that point, because when the player is on the website, is when they have time, when they are checking where the interest is, right? So I do agree with Tomer on the fact that these windows, and I believe that they're getting shorter by the time. So if you're not using the data that you have at hand as quickly as possible, you are missing out on conversions that later on are going to be more difficult and more expensive to acquire to achieve.
I completely agree with you. And by the way, we've done some statistics about our customers, and we know that around 85% of the customers that won't convert during the first 10 minutes just won't convert. So you have a very short windows to convert. The 15 other percent can be converted after, but as more time goes, the less chance you'll have to convert these customers, because maybe they just found out another competitor of yours and just are already playing there and already deposit there, and they get good service and they're happy with the product. So you're less likely to be able to convert these customers.
So this really underlines the fact that first impressions count, and you've got to make hay during those first impressions. Otherwise, you've got a bit of a battle on your hand, I guess. So if that's kind of accepted, and obviously you need to be a bit more dynamic to be able to respond to a potential customer within that 10-minute window. Why aren't operators able to do that? With everything being a bit static and taking hours or days, like Emiliano says, what's stopping them from changing to this dynamic strategy and being able to interact with that player to increase the conversion chances, considering they've spent all that money to get them there in the first place?
Yeah, I think there's always a dynamic between the marketing teams within the organization and the product and R&D teams. Always. Like the marketing wants a lot of requirements, but they need to wait forever till these are met. So lack of technology by this organization is the from what we've seen so far is the most major barrier they have, because they know what they're trying to achieve. We had a questionnaire a couple of days ago and asking around 1,000 businesses of whether they think that personalization can contribute their business. It was, I think that over 90% said yes, but when we asked how many of them actually implement the personalization, that was around 15%, really, or 30 under 30% were actually able to meet their needs. And when we asked why, a lot of them said that the IT and the technology is the main barrier. So yeah, it's complex to collect the data from all the different data sources. You have front end, you have back end. Also in the back end, you have different platforms, sports betting, you have casino, you have other products, you have CRM, you have bonus engines, and you need to somehow connect everything in real time and to orchestrate all this strategy to work in a seamless way. And that's complex. So the marketing knows what they're trying to achieve, but it's always a technological barrier that the organization are unable to meet.
I mean, would that be your experience as well, Emiliano, when you've seen it? It's more of a internal battle that marketing have with their tech team and their tech roadmap.
Of course, because at the end there is only one tech team who has to cater to different departments, right? They cannot do everything the marketing wants. The business requires also development in fraud, in part processing, in the same tools customer service have, even for the own business to run behind the curtains as well. So you want, and one of the issues is that a lot of business, they don't know about the solutions that they're out there, and they are either afraid of sharing, they're afraid of how they can be done. They rather to do everything in house, and they rely on probably a lot of codes that could be old coding as well, and you have changes in development as well, and they have to retake the code, reanalyze, and then you have with all the issues that Proto has with bad commenting in the code and people trying to get up to date with it, and then trying to implement new technologies where in the meantime they're actually getting all these departments. It can become a nightmare, right? So at this point they're trying to focus on different aspects of the business, missing out this real time data and the use and the benefits that it can cause to an operator in the long term, right?
Yeah. By the way, I think that organizations should try to free their marketing organization from the IT or from the R&D teams. They should be looking for a solution that will just enable the marketeers to implement their strategies, to implement what they're trying to achieve, without all the R&D and IT resources that are required for this implementation.
So it's like letting the marketeers do the marketing and communicate with the players in the most effective way, rather than battling internally for some visibility around a tech team who've got a stack from product and a stack from finance, and perhaps their voice doesn't quite carry as much weight as some of the other departments. So.
Yeah. By the way, not just the marketing teams, also the product. The product is also suffers from lack of resources from the ICT side. Now, the product, for example, a very common use case: a customer enters the lobby page and doesn't know which game to select because he can see 200 different options. So the product want to achieve, for example, to raise a pop-up with all the options that are most popular for people that comes from your area. Okay, now that's in order to achieve that by your R&D teams or your IT department, you will have to wait over 1 year just to raise this pop-up, and that's like one simple use case that you're trying to achieve. Now, with when you use like advanced tools, you can do that without any R&D involvement, and just like enable your product to build better product faster and without using the R&D resources. So I think that companies should go to this direction. Velocity, from my opinion, even as a CEO, is the most important thing that an organization has. So I think that they need to try to use tools that do that for them and not try to develop everything internally.
Sure. I mean, if anybody wants to ask any questions on this, please use the Q&A function. But say an operator has managed to get all this all these communication tools to deal with the potential customers that are on the site. And they see some of the players are hanging around within this 10-minute window, but not yet converting. I mean, what could be done in that instance at the moment? What would you recommend some of the things that operators can do? I mean, I'll go to you, Emiliano, first.
Sure. Well, operators should always be focusing on how, as Tomer was saying, how to release the resources at the end, and they have to optimize the promotions that they're catering to their players and using as much data as they can to that. The disconnections that we have between the real time, as we mentioned before, and the development process is appalling to some cases, and I think it's more about they realizing the trends that are actually moving forward in the different markets, right? Any potential player that are coming to the website, right, they should be able to find that promotion that is important for them, and not being able to tackle this in the right time, it's just gonna cost money at the end.
Sure. How about you, Tomer? What would you suggest in this instance? What are some of the effective things that operators can do within this 10-minute window?
First of all, I suggest that they just do everything to convert the customer and just to start working on the scrolling strategies. I like being aggressive from what I've seen so far. You don't need to be afraid to approach too much to a player. What we've seen is that as more you approach a player, the better chance you'll have to convert this customer. You need to use the data that you collect, not just for customizing the offering for the customer, but also to customize the content. For example, if the customer enters the roulette page, you want to change the images and everything. And yeah, generally, in addition, also to become more aggressive as time goes, because we've seen that some customers just don't convert with your regular bonuses. So you want to, as time goes, you want to at least to try to convert the user with better bonuses. By the way, I'm not sure that that bonuses by default are the correct way, because sometimes they can damage your profits. So it really depends. But another thing that I think that should be taken very into consideration, should be very much into consideration, is the fact that we see a lot of different customers, and in each region, each brand, we can see completely different customer behavior. We have customer in the East, we have customer in Europe, and you see completely different behavior of customers. So I think that for every pop-up, for every approach that you have with a customer, for any bonus that you grant, you need to test. So you need to create multivariate testing on every pop-up, on every stage, and to make sure that you constantly improve your engagement. And regarding your question, your first question, you need to approach fast, because and fast means usually in product, pop-ups, banners. You don't have any other choice. So because you only have 10 minutes for that, so that's 5%.
Sure. I mean, Emiliano, yesterday you said that sort of a chat function and chatbots might also be a good tool to engage with a player that comes along. I don't know how
there is a limit, right? And there is a tendency of using chatbots in general because you don't want to oversend traffic to your support channels for actually depositing players, for example. But if you see a player who is checking for certain amount of time the promotions page, or for certain amount of time the VAP page, and checking the different promotions, then you know that he's an experienced player, most likely looking for the best option where he's going to deposit. So at
Mhm.
that point, it's better to actually not also getting the promotions, but opening channels of being able to chat with an agent live, because at the end, this is a mix of what Tomer was saying. You have different markets that have different localization requirements, and you want to throw personalization in the mix. And personalization is not only about getting the correct coupon to the right customer on the right product, but also taking to the next level, but trying to make him engage with your staff. Because at the end, if you have more engagement, you have more trust, more brand awareness, more loyalty at the end. Because at the end, the player knows that he's not chatting with somebody with a bot or with an automated system, but there's actually somebody behind that he can actually keep talking to. And these kind of small things are something some a lot of these small things start adding up to a big conversion strategy for the operator.
Yeah, another very common practice that we see is that, for example, a customer enters the deposit page and did not end up the deposit within 3 minutes. So maybe you need to give him the extra kick, as Emiliano mentioned. Maybe you can also add up support to help him out or to speak with this customer. You can send him an incentive. It really depends, and it really depends as discussed on the customers or on the regions and everything. So I don't know what will give him the extra kick in order to end up the deposit, but we need to approach and test, constantly test different approaches.
Sure. I mean, one of the questions we've got here is kind of what advanced tools do you recommend that help marketing and product get actionable data faster? So being able to analyze and bring more personal, being able to offer something more personal on that front. So how's the best way? How's the best way to sort of collect that data and action it?
So first of all, I'm completely biased. We in Solidix will solve this exact pain. So we enable customer to collect the data from all the data, their distributed data sources. So we have our JavaScript embedded in the customer site, enable it to track every customer action from logins, pages, clicks, and everything. We also, by the way, Google also helps with collecting some events from the front end. So if Google Tag Manager, for example, you can track customer actions and just stream these events to different tools, also to Solidix, of course. I think that the hardest part of the integration comes from the backend, and that's where we Solidix excel. So even if you have a database which is a completely offline source, so still we are able to stream the data live. I'm not saying that there are not alternatives, but they require some additional R&D for that. So I can recommend of ourselves, but again, I'm completely biased. So.
Well, I hope that answers Dean's question there. So coming back to personalization, what measures can operators take to make the potential player feel more at home and catered to while on the landing page? We've talked a little bit about chatbots, but what else can be done? So a lot of the time, navigation is a bit of a can be a bit overwhelming if you're onto a site for the first time. What's the best way of designing an effective landing page, would you say, Emiliano?
Well, first you have to understand where the traffic is coming from, right? That will be critical for you to actually provide the right promotion. Tomer and myself have a little bit of a different view in regarding landing page. Yeah, you want to focalize where they're coming from, but also give them the option that there's more products there. Because I know cross marketing you want to apply it at a later stage, but it's also important, and you find it a lot as well that there is a one place solution or a one size solution for all. Some players like that. Some players maybe they like only casino, but it's important to understand where they're coming to provide the right product. And that's the first step to get them into the website, right? Once in the website, then is when you start the time start clicking, right? To start pushing where they're looking, what provider they're looking, where they're standing, what are they checking, because at the end, a lot of players will come into a registration and go for it, especially if they come for affiliate trackers. But some of them come directly and they're actually checking. They want to check around, see how they feel, and that time frame is the time frame that you have to actually to cater the right promotions that they need. And as Tomer was saying, and I completely agree with him, the A/B testing that you have to do, or multi testing that you have to do to find the right promotion for them, without letting on the side the localization, right? It's very different how you're going to approach an Indian customer from an European customer, from a Southeast Asian customer, from a Latin American customer or African one. So you have to understand the markets that you're going to in to properly give a localized promotion and communication.
Yeah. By the way, I'll take it a bit further.
Mhm.
It's not just the landing page. I think that a lot of time you can see like there's no flow between the landing page and the website. For example, a customer enters a landing page, clicks or gets a coupon, clicks, enters the website, but is just like other person at this moment. So I think that a lot of time there's no continuation between the offer and the website. And I think that customers should take, that brands should take further in this matter. And once the customer enters, you know where it came from. Just raise a pop-up so the customer can just like fill his coupon code, or I don't know. So I think that it's not just about landing page; it's about making the experience better for the customer and flawless.
I mean, you made the analogy at the top of the conversation about it being a dance between the operator and the potential customer. And I think that says a lot, that a landing page is potentially the first step of the dance, but what you need is something more personal for the next step and the next step and next step. And then
Right.
you're moving in unison, and you can have a better experience with each other.
Yeah, by the way, the flow doesn't end up on the conversion. And we had a customer. We had one of the customer asked me that he told me, "Hey, I have a second deposit issue." Okay, once the customer converts, now I have an issue with convert or moving into the next phase and making his next conversion. The first question that I ask is, did you try to just raise a pop-up right after the first conversion and give him a bonus for the second conversion? Sometimes you don't, like, you need to tackle the issue immediately, and to just like handling all your different issues in a row. So you just need to look at the customer as a journey that you go through, and you have your goals that you want to take, or the touch point that you want this customer to touch in order to achieve your goal. So it's not a 1 point journey. It's a long journey with multiple touch points that the customer needs to go through.
It's a long dance with different music. I mean, Emiliano, you mentioned when we were discussing earlier. I think, did you say it was once you've got 3 deposits, then it's more or less a very long-term relationship between customer and brand?
Correct. From the time I was working on the VIP retention departments, we had a strong focus to manage those 3 deposits, those 3 transactions, with a lot of engagement between our support and our staff, because we want to build this trust and this loyalty, and that's something that will carry on with time, right? I mean, at that point, you not only have the customer who has already invested 3 times with you, but he probably already discussed with support. He already knows a little bit about your product more in depth, and you want to cater these relationships. Nevertheless, it's very easy to say get 3 deposits, but the practice is not so easy, right? Because at the end, again, we are in a market that there's a lot of competition, and there is a lot of advances every day on different areas to improve your product, to make it outstanding compared to the competition. And this is where I see a lot of operators that they have issues, right? Again, they build out of legacy code, probably not up to date, focusing resources on different areas, and failing to actually focus on what they should actually be do. And and this part, I'm actually a very big fan of automation, but also I'm very big fan of customer engagement with support. It's like I'm in the middle right there, because at the end, a lot of these players are looking not only for entertainment, but also to know and have the certainty that there will be somebody on the other side that will be able to help in at any stage. Support, personalization, localization, I think are three of the traditional areas that operator focus. You drop automation there and you coordinate everything like an orchestra, and then you have something outstanding for the player.
Yeah, by the way, I think that it's also like brand dependent, because at the end of the day, if you have like the best product in the world and everything is amazing, so the customer enters and does his first deposit, and it feels so at home from the very first moment that no one else should be helping him moving to the next touch point and make the second deposit, because he's willing to do that. But the reality is far away from that, and products are far from being perfect. And I think that we as we call it marketing, but marketing and product are so like in touch these days. And I think that one of the main things that we work when we manage CRM is to try to solve product issues, or although the product is not perfect, moving the customer to the next positive touch point and make him feel at home. Because once you feel at home, if the customer feels at home and is already familiar with all the functionalities of the product, is now doesn't need. It's easier for him to take the decision just to make his forced deposit. So I think that if you solve or help solving the product and improving the customer experience, that's what I believe that brands should be focusing on. Then the customer will just move to the next positive touch point.
I mean, when it comes to sort of personalization at landing page, does it matter what? Do you have to adapt also what platform they're on? I mean, do you have to move quicker if someone's on mobile because your real estate is reduced, or does being on a mobile, with it being such a personal device, make it a bit easier to make that connection? I just wonder if you had any sort of if you would advise communicating in a different ways between laptop, desktop, and on the mobile.
So first of all, for what we see, again, I can only speak from my experience, but we see that there's a movement, and in a native way, I think that in all verticals, not just in online gaming, toward the mobile. So most of the players today play while they're on their mobile. But generally speaking, I don't think that you need to take one approach. When you send, for example, a pop-up, you just need to make it responsive and to have the technology that is able to convey the data to the right platform in the right way, and you can win them all. You don't need to just take one approach. You can just approach a customer wherever they are. By the way, not just when they are online. If the customer is registered to push, you want to send him a push. Otherwise, you want to send him an SMS. We have some geographies that we see very good response to voice calls. So, for example, if you need to, even for conversions, meaning you give the customer a call and you try to convert him with a call. So, and usually, by the way, we also connect him with a support agent. So it's not always completely automated. Sometimes you do need, specifically also in particular geographies, you do need the human touch, as Emiliano mentioned. But I think that you need to just try to win them all, and understand where your pains are. Begin with the large pain, and then tackle the next.
I mean, Emiliano, have you had any sort of experience in different ways of communicating, depending on what platform they arrive on?
I think I come from experience that it's like from the other side compared to Tomer. From the experience I had is with systems that requires a lot of manual work. That's why you saw these delays between when the customer was and when you actually are engaging with the customer. So at the end, you would like to have systems that allows you to connect and see which customer you should call a certain period, depending if they're online, if they're stuck in deposits, if maybe they're checking something, and maybe that's the right time that you want to call the customer or engage with him in a direct way. And that happens a lot, especially when you're trying to retain and you're trying to increase their gameplay, especially on a VIP level. Um, Also for conversions, I know it's important to have this type of opening channels. And as you said it before, right? Even something as simple as thinking about a pop-up, sending a pop-up no matter which device the customer is using. To this day, there are operators around that they could send the pop-up on mobile, but they cannot send it on browser. They can send it on browser, but they cannot send it on mobile because again, their development teams are spread around. They're not adapting as fast as they could to new technologies, and that's at the end something that is affecting them on the long run, right? So if you have a system that can not only take the real-time data, use it for marketing purposes to localize, personalize, and give the right promotion to the player, but also allows you to connect and make the right decisions on the operational side, then you have an ace under your sleeve. You have this edge of being able to connect and not only cater the player, but also engage with the player. At the end, that's something that I know from my experience is the more engagement you have with the player on the website and your teams, most likely more revenue is going to come from that player and more trust and more lifetime value from that player as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I think that it's common to believe that the more channel that I want to approach a customer, it becomes harder. It's harder to manage. I cannot. I lose my control and everything. And I think that brands should try to achieve the control, because control is one of the most important things that they need to have when they manage large strategies. Because whenever you have 1,000 touch points and you can just lose your hands and don't you can't understand which player is approached when and how and in which channel. So first you need to get the tools that will give it the control to manage these large strategies and to manage these all the channels that you need in order to drive the customer to the right action. But it is possible.
Say again, sorry?
It is possible.
Yeah, I was going to say, I suppose part of the key is knowing what data is useful and what data is just noise, and being able to pick out what's most effective there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the other things about conversion, I mean, this goes. We're talking about beyond the 10-minute window, even days windows now. About certainly on the gaming sites, not so much on the sports betting sites, but in the US, in the sports betting site, it starts to become a thing. Free play customers who've never really made a deposit. But if you're getting a certain critical mass of people doing the social slots and the free play slots, they're aware of the product. It seems to me to be a lower barrier of entry to get them to start depositing, because the friction isn't there for somebody coming in cold, shall we say? But from what I've seen, operators don't really focus on this segment. I mean, is there any way of converting this type of free play player to someone who deposits?
Actually, I think that one of the challenges is to understand who is a free player, because there are different types of player when it comes to free players. Some just want to try out your platform and see if they have the games that they're looking for, and to play around and get to know your games that are not very popular and so on. While others can play forever in your tool, because these are more like social gaming players. So I think that one of the challenges here is to understand patterns in what players is social player and which is a true player, just like traveling around and try to evaluate your tool. And generally speaking, we know that around 40% of the customers that play free, like in European markets, will most likely to convert. But you can also like implement some strategies that can give you to improve this rate. For example, let's say that a customer plays free and wins, I don't know, $5, then you can let him know that this money could be real, but it's not real because he plays free bets. He plays, sorry, he plays as in the demo mode. So you can raise a pop-up and just ask him to move to a real account and just to deposit money. So that's just one example.
Sure. I mean, Emiliano, what's been your experience on in the little free to play area?
Oh, there is also like you have to do a balance, right, between how more aggressive can you become as a provider to get the conversion in exchange of possible, reduce revenue from a player, because if it's seen in that, not only that you are sometimes spoiling the player because they know they could get something better if they waited long enough. So you have to really find a balance over there between how aggressive you want to be and how worth it will be, because at the end, if you start checking the pattern, the behavior of the player, you should be able to identify which players are just free to play, they just came casually. You should be able to identify which are bonus abusers, they only come to redeem the bonuses trying just to get a hit. You should be able to have a tool to actually link these multi-account bonus abusers as well, so you can actually dedicate the resources into the free players that you want to become step by step more aggressive in your acquisition without spoiling the player at the long term, right? Because you want to be able not only to convert, but you want to also grow them into a VIP player eventually in your site, right?
Yeah, and again, in different regions, the strategy can be completely different. So testing is the key here, in order to like. And by the way, also to be creative, because a lot of times we see that brands just implement what they've seen so far, but that's not marketing, and that's not like, you don't build an amazing product like that. You need to be creative. You need to try out on portion of your customers and see how it goes, and just continuously improve your product.
Yeah, I think that's an issue right now in the industry, because everyone you see around and everyone is doing the same. You already lost focus on who started what, right? How you start thinking out of the box is, I think, is the real challenge for marketers at this point.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
but
So go on, Soma.
we see a lot of different strategies, and we see very creative minds, and I'm telling you that the most creative minds, they usually gain the best outcome. So they don't just think for the long term, just for the conversion. They also, at the beginning, they already begin to think of over the second deposit and the experience that the user is having, and not just for converting, because converting is not the goal, is just a milestone in the road. Okay, so, and that's very important to remember. But being creative and original, that's the key here, and have the right tools to help you implement that, of course.
No, I mean, it's interesting that a lot of the KPIs used in publicly are first-time deposits. Maybe people should start pushing their second-time deposits as well, rates as well, and just to show you how effective they are beyond that first bit of customer acquisition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're saying, it's there's similar offers across all operators. And certainly coming up to this summer, we're going to have quite a homogeneous offering ahead of Euro 2020, albeit in 2021. I was wondering if you believe that this provides an interesting opportunity for one of the creative minds that you're talking about to try something different, or does it need for one big tournament to be a bit flatter than the previous ones before people start looking to do a different way? I mean, fortunately, if this year's flat, uniquely, we've got a tournament next year. We've got the World Cup next year, albeit in November, so you can quickly change it. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Tomer.
I believe that it's going to take time to adopt like these new technologies and new strategies, and it takes time for market to change. So I think that the early adopters will be the ones that will take the market to this direction, and we're already seeing that there are a lot of early adopters out there that start embracing these technologies and these new strategies. And the fact that the price of acquisition goes up, it also takes the industry towards adopting new technologies, and in order to improve customer lifetime value and improve conversions and so on. But it's going to take time. I don't think that we'll see a majority of the market adopt such technologies during 2021, sorry, and also on the next year. I think it can take a few years. By the way, it's not just for this industry. It takes time to adopt new technologies. We can see that when it comes to electric cars, when it comes to insurtech. So one insurtech company comes up and say, "Hey, I'm gonna make everything automated," and it takes a few years, and without all the big companies notice, these companies now control 30% of the market. Same for electric cars. The companies, it takes time, but if the companies won't start migrating their strategies toward personalization, providing better user experience, using the data that you collect over customers to improve both your revenues and both the user experience, they won't survive for the long term. And what we call them early adopters that are now, which are usually the smaller companies, will just get large portion of the market before the big guys notice.
Do you have a view on Emiliano? Anything that might change the way people approach acquisition?
Well, any tournament or any special event is an excuse from the marketing side, right?
Mm-hmm.
To improve, to think out of the box, to actually try to come up with something new. That's something that at the end we all want to change the market in some way, right? We all are trying to have that promotion that is going to turn the tables around, and that's the real competition, right? But again, if you have the right tools, you allow the creative to actually create more, which is what they're supposed to be doing instead of fighting with other departments. And at the end, as Tomer was saying, doing the first jump or doing that first step into becoming an early adapter of a technology is something that have to be aligned with the business strategy as well to some degree, right? You cannot expect for a business who are actually solving some other critical issues, for example, processing or fraud issues or internal systems, to actually dedicate a lot of effort into adopting this, because at the end they could have other priorities at the moment, but that doesn't remain the fact that they're going to be late for the party, right? By the time they're going to start adopting these technologies, there are another technology around the corner. You have to keep in mind that the development rate of new technologies is increasing in speed year over year.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know what next year is going to come with, so you want to be ready as much as you can for it.
I'm sure that next year the competition will be more equipped than it is now. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
For
because
sure.
no.
I mean, what is interesting, certainly in the UK at the moment, there's a lot of they're reviewing the gambling laws over here, and there is a lot of focus on a lot of things, but particularly on bonus offers and the way people are attracted. So, I mean, it probably would make good business sense for companies to have a parallel marketing strategy other than the tried and tested route. And as you say, they need to start doing that now because it takes some time to implement that, and then at least they'll have a competitive advantage over anybody starting from scratch.
Yeah. By the way, it doesn't just take time to build the technology. There's a whole strategy to build behind. We have customers that have few thousands of touch points. Behind each touch point, there are maybe few tens of different contents, which creates a pure personalized customer experience. So it takes time to build that. It's just like building a product. It doesn't really just. It takes time to build or to adopt the technology. It takes time to adopt the technology to learn. If you create tasks, it takes time to analyze the results and to improve your content. And so yeah, takes time, and it's better to begin as earlier as they can.
I mean, we've got a question here.
Mhm.
Is it possible to have a site with a dynamic front end owned by product marketing on top of the back end site operation code? Sort of Amazon consumer site versus their logistics and fulfillment. That seems quite. It seems like a model that's been used in the industry before.
To have a site with dynamic front end on top of backend site operation code. I have a very vast technological background, and I'm not sure that I understand the question. but I'll just let you know that when it comes to front end, you can track any action of the customer, anything, and it's quite easy to implement because if the code is a JavaScript, which is a website, and I think that's what he meant here. It means that you can embed Google Tag Manager, so you can track also almost any events from the front end. Our SDK natively supports tracking some of the events. And when it comes to the backend, there are few ways to integrate to backend. So far, we didn't encounter a case that we were not able to connect. So I guess yes, that the answer is yes. You just need to provide access to your data sources, embed JavaScript in the front end, and provide access to your backend sources. That's generally it. Of course, it's more complex, and I need to better understand the infrastructure. But
I mean, I'm just wary of the time now. We've just got another question in from Mariana Melkonyan. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. She's got a question for the participants on their opinion regarding AI technologies in gaming that can make this job easier, as well as introduce other challenges. I mean, Emiliano, I'm not sure if you've seen AI in action. It's
we start implementing an AI chatbots now that you mentioned that at a certain point in operation. I remember one of the biggest challenges was the learning curve that the chatbot had to have at the beginning before it actually came into functioning. I believe AI is going to be a game changer in the long run, facilitating the content that the player wants to see, for example, based on player behavior, that is going to be also going hand by hand with automation. So I do believe there's a lot of room for AI technologies to improve the customer experience to a certain degree, also to facilitate also that the load that and the burden that certain operations have in their support to a certain degree. Right at the end, I think we're still some years away before we can have an AI that is going to behave completely like a human. By the time that happens, well, we're gonna see what happens with the industry altogether, I suppose.
First of all, I completely agree, and it's a great question, and I might be surprising you, but I believe that first of all, AI is very important in particular cases. For example, you have a touch point and you don't know what offer to offer a customer. So in this case, that you can create a clear KPI of what you're trying to achieve, and the number of offers or content are clear. So in this case, it will work very well. But oftenly, I meet a lot of companies and they believe that, or they're looking for an AI that will just spare them from managing their business. And it's just not going to happen because, and whenever we meet our customers, we first tell them, hey, before you enable the AI, first, you need to create a very firm marketing strategy. Always begin with a strategy. like describe what you are trying to achieve, build the wireframes for that. And if you have a particular case that it's very hard for you to take a decision, or it is hard for you, or it's impossible even to make a decision, the best decision, or if it's impossible to answer a certain question, then you need to define this question, and maybe a statistical model will be able to help you with that. And based on the result, you will be able to take a better decision. But in the end of the day, always begin with strategy, with the creativity. The AI won't give you that. You need to begin with the creativity, and then once you have a firm marketing strategy, then you can enable AI in particular cases in order to help you answering particular questions. For example, what's the probability for churn? Which content the user will most probably convert to? Each user, before I send him a message, I want to take a smart decision. So in these cases, yes, it can help you out, but it can improve. It won't replace your mind, and that's important. It won't replace your creativity.
Yeah, if you the old adage of rubbish in, rubbish out is one to bear in mind there, I guess. So yeah, just bringing this conversation to an end. Like I say, some of the everyday tactics. I mean, so from what I can say, some of the key takeaways is you've got a 10-minute window once customers arrive. Make sure your landing page is reflective of how the traffic's come in, and don't stop on the first time deposit. Carry through that customer decision to at least a third deposit, and have yourself a longer term relationship with each individual. So just pass you over to Emiliano and Toma, if you've got one last thing to say on the subject, Toma.
Yeah, first of all, use the data that you collect in order to improve your content. Move from static strategies into rolling strategies, meaning adapt to what the customer does or doesn't do. That's very important in order to drive conversions. And always test, always, on every content. By the way, not just for conversion. On every content that you show up to the user, create 3 different options and just understand what works better and improve and always improve.
And Emiliano, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, touch points really important. Trigger events really important, right? Trying to use all the tools, technological tools you can have at your side for your advantage, and take the time to try to think out of the box when you have these tech issues resolved. And lastly, is as I said, I'm very advocate of the engagement between customers and sites. Important to focus on that engagement, important for your team to talk to the players at the right moment, because at the end, retention is really important for any operation, and that could be a game changer for you as well.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Audience, I hope you've all enjoyed yourself, and yes, I'll speak to you all again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.